Today we are talking about what is going on over at KTM because there is a lot of controversy around this brand and a lot of news around this brand, not all of it being good recently.
Yeah, it seems like KTM is in a little bit of trouble and they need to turn things around really quickly if we're going to have a future for KTM. And there's a lot to go through here, from earnings to new models to problems with some old models. And then we're going to open it up to you guys and, try and get your feelers for some of your experience with KTM. But yeah, let's dive into what's going on in 2024 with one of the major motorcycle manufacturers here in the world.
Now, one of the things I think a lot of people know about and are talking about are the financial issues that are going on over at KTM, and that extends to the parent company, Pure Mobility, as well as Bajaj Auto. The company acknowledged that its sales have fallen by around 27% during the first half of 2024, which is a massive decrease.
This is big for the whole group. I mean, Pure Mobility, they own KTM, Husky, Gas, but those brands make up for over 90% of the earnings for the parent companies. So they lost pretty crazy 172 million euros. Most of these figures are in euros because that's what the earning reports are in.
Yeah.
And 172 million euro loss is crazy compared to the 53 million euro profit this company had at mid-year of 2023. So just a little over a year ago.
There's also been a massive rise in debt at the company. So in 2022, they had about 300 million in debt, which is now at a number over 1.4 billion euros. So pretty massive increases in debt, as well as a lot of layoffs in 2024.
Yeah, there's been over 500 layoffs this year. There's probably going to be more coming. We'll talk about production halts in a second. But yeah, I mean, debt is rising like crazy.
Yeah, and there's also one of their manufacturing plants that they're going to freeze production on for the first 2 months in 2025, which is also a pretty big deal because when you generally stop production on those production lines, it's difficult to get them going again. But it seems to be the case that that is necessary, which is a pretty extreme measure.
Yeah, totally. And early reports are saying that they're still going to keep a lot of the employees from these factories, but they're going to be switching shifts around. So there used to be 2 production shifts. They're going to move that down to 1. So that's, of course, going to bring even more layoffs. But yeah, totally stopping production for 2 months at the start of the year, especially when we're coming into summer and people are going to be looking to buy new bikes. That's big news.
Yeah, and as far as some of the funding that they're looking for, there was some speculation that Red Bull might go in and help out KTM, but the company denied that recently. And it's interesting because there are a lot of new motorcycle announcements coming from KTM.
Yeah, there's tons of new models coming out. We just saw one that I'm really excited about, which is the new 990 RCR. There's the new 890 Duke R, the 1290 Super Adventure S, the 1390 Super Duke R Evo. They're announcing a ton of new models right now for a company that is also announcing they're going to be halting production. So I mean, part of that makes sense, right? They want to show that there's a bright future and that they're innovating.
Plans.
Yeah. But right now it's not looking too good. And going back to what you were saying about Red Bull, KTM has been pretty heavily invested in MotoGP. They're starting to walk that back a little bit. So instead of having separate Gas and KTM teams, they seem to be doubling down on KTM being the racing brand basically for everything from MotoGP to Dakar. And I think that makes sense. I mean, there was a lot of talk when KTM stepped in to acquire Gas and Husky that maybe that was the wrong move, that they're putting too much into these other brands when they should have been focusing on KTM. And that's also a possibility, but it seems like they're walking back some of their racing obligations, but they're still going to be pretty heavily invested in MotoGP. And Pure Mobility is saying that Red Bull is not stepping in to save them and give them this funding they need.
Now, that's just one of the things that's going on here with KTM. And ultimately, Alex and I, we're not finance bros. We're guys who love motorcycles and have cameras. So that's our area. So
exactly.
This is really as much as we're able to dive into as far as their financial troubles, but the sum of it is that they are struggling financially. I think that's pretty clear. But there's some other things that we want to talk about, and aspects of what KTM is doing that could be possibly also contributing more to some of their financial issues. Some of that, too, comes down to a little bit of, I think, the brand's current image, because there's been a lot of controversy about KTM moving a lot of production over to China, which for, I think, some buyers has devalued the brand a little bit, because generally KTM has been a pretty premium brand. And I think that there are definitely some people out there, plenty of them, in fact, that are shying away from the brand because of that manufacturing move.
Yeah, a lot of people see the difference in a bike that's produced somewhere like Austria versus somewhere like China. There's a lot of people here in the United States that just will refuse to buy a bike that's produced in China. So, yeah, I mean, that might be devaluing the brand a little bit, might be shying some customers away. And you know, some people that have been big fans of KTM for a long time but can't get behind a bike that's produced in China, they're going to start looking elsewhere for their motorcycles.
Yeah, and there's also been some reliability issues, one in particular with the LC8C engine and its camshaft failures. This has been a huge point of contention for a lot of buyers, and especially the fact that KTM seemed to have dragged their feet on addressing the issue. Specifically, what the failures are is on 2018 to 2020 790 Dukes as well as 790 Adventures. The camshafts were having excessive premature wear, so not necessarily a lot of miles. And if you look online, you'll see some pretty dramatic photos of the wear on a few examples. And KTM says that that is due to poor oiling and due to narrow camshaft followers, stuff that they have since addressed, but it also put off a lot of customers when relatively low-mile bikes were having these pretty serious issues.
Yeah, and KTM's starting to address that now. They have been for a little bit, but yeah, that'd be really frustrating as a customer to buy a brand new motorcycle and, you know, to start having issues with it, to go do your research online and learn that there's a ton of other customers that are having the same exact issue, yet the brand is not really acknowledging the issue and not doing anything to fix it and kind of leaving it in the customer's hands. So that's never good to see, and obviously that's going to sour the taste for a lot of people who have purchased and spent their hard-earned money on these bikes.
Yeah, and it seems like there's other people that are also not too keen on things KTM is doing around like the track pack or tech packs that you can get to largely just unlock software that's really for features already on the bike, and especially at an $800 price tag to give you features that the hardware is already there for. That rubs people the wrong way, understandably so. Right.
So a lot of these bikes, you know, they're already ride-by-wire. They come with quick shifters, but a lot of those features you can't access unless you spend another $800 or $1,000 on top of the purchase price, bring the bike back to a dealership or do it at the time of purchase, you know, pay for an hour or 2 hours of labor to basically install software and unlock features. And we've seen this in the car world, you know, with like heated seats and, you know, things that require subscriptions, but I've never seen anybody react to that kind of thing in a positive way. You know, people don't feel like they're given choice when they get a bike that already has all these features and then they have to pay to unlock them. That doesn't feel like choice. That just feels like a manufacturer
it feels like a money grab.
Selfish.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's not great. And then the other thing too is just styling on some of these bikes. Like there's a ton of brands where you have a huge variety in whether you want a sport bike or something that's super aggressively styled or something that's got a retro flair.
And it would be great if they could do something kind of like what Yamaha does with the MT-09 and the XSR 900. I also want to say a quick thanks to our friends Scott and the team over at Rider Justice. They've been supporting our channel for a long time. They're here, Colorado-based, but anywhere across the country. If you need legal representation, either on 2 wheels or 4, make sure you call Scott first.
Those are some of the issues with KTM. We're not doing this video to absolutely hate, you know, rip KTM a new one. And I like the brand. I've owned a KTM in the past. I am seriously considering this new 990 RCR if they, you know, can turn things around and start producing those. I think that'd be a wicked track bike. So I do see, you know, a future in KTM where they really start to turn things around, but they got to do it quickly, and they got to get some funding or things are not going to turn around for them.
And to your point, it's the same for me as well. I love KTM. I love their dirt bikes. I love Husky dirt bikes as well. There's motorcycles in their lineup that I would seriously consider for myself. But at the same time, there is this long list of things that we would love to see the brand do that will hopefully turn things around for them. And ultimately, this is news. And what we do is cover the news. So unfortunately, the news right now with KTM is not looking the best that it has ever looked. And we hope to see that turn around sometime soon.
Yeah,
we want to keep riding it.
Exactly. Yeah, they're cool bikes. They've got it would just stink to see, a manufacturer that's been around for so long pumping out really good bikes just drive themselves into the ground. So we're rooting for them. Yeah, competition's always great. The more bikes, the better. But we want to know your experience with this. And, if you've owned one of these bikes with camshaft issues, we want to hear your experience, how that was handled. And I don't know, if you were the CEO of KTM, what would you do to turn this company around? Let us know in the comments.
Yep, that's all for this video. We'll see you in the next.